Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rich Sellers Podcast. Today, I joined in with Mike, and today it is going to be an exciting episode. Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We were just talking about things before hitting record, and I'm coming off of one of those miserable travel experiences that if you travel enough, we all have had, where you get delayed, you get to spend a bunch of time on the airplane. I've had worse, but it was the worst turbulence I've ever had. I actually was very close to getting sick on the airplane. I had the bag ready and everything. It was an interesting evening, but otherwise doing well.
That's good. That's good. So, Mike, I think all we have a crazy story, and I'll tell you one story about my me, and that was my first flight. And in that
Your
first
first flight,
yeah,
uh
that was it was years back.
oh.
It was a years back, and what was happening was there was a crazy storm where the was going to land, and this is my first flight. I was feeling the turbulence for the first time in a storm, and the plane, it couldn't land for two times. So it attempted for two times, and the third time it landed. So it was a crazy first
Yeah,
flight for me.
yeah. Yeah, I've had that happen before, and it was not my first flight. So luckily, it was like one of those like touch and goes, and they go down and they can't quite land, so they have to like re-engage the engines, and you come back up, and yeah, it's a little bit weird, that's for sure. I would probably have freaked the hell out if it was my very first flight. Luckily, my first flight went relatively smooth, so I was lucky in that regard.
So, Mike, everyone knows you from your podcast, Ecom Crew. But for those who don't know you, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I quit my job 19 years ago. We're getting close to 20 years here, anniversary, which is kind of crazy. Started out doing affiliate marketing back in the online poker space in 2000, early 2004, and then got into several other affiliate marketing things. And about 10 years ago, I shifted gears into e-commerce. We had treadmill.com as a domain name, and we developed that out and sold fitness equipment for several years. And since then, I've sold that and then started other businesses, bought other businesses, sold some businesses. It's been an interesting journey. This year has been the year of the sale. I've kind of said because starting on June 2nd, we sold our biggest business, and then we've sold off all the others this year except for one. And so I'm down to one e-commerce business, and it's a completely different feel around here than it was this time last year.
Yeah, I think that is the same time when we met at the Ecom India Summit. You were talking about the same thing, about the one thing. And I think this is something
Yeah.
that we would like to discuss a little bit more because you have built and sold multiple businesses. And over the time of building and selling, it's been years. And also the shift that happened in yourself, that is also highly respected, right? And we want to discuss about that a little bit. So would you like to tell something about what is the mindset shift happened in you, particularly you, and also a little bit about the one thing that you were discussing back there?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm getting older, right? And I think as you get older, your body starts to fail you. You get all these aches and pains, and it gets harder from one respect, but the other is you're wiser, right? I mean, you see things happen over and over again. Maybe you don't have the same energy that you once had, and you have to think how you can work smarter. Not necessarily just harder. And certainly you see patterns develop, and that was happening for me. Whenever I would start a business, I would start something, kind of tinker around with it, it would not work out. I would start something, tinker around with it, it would not work out. Eventually I would find something that did well, and then I would want to go all in on it, right? It's just kind of a similar cycle of, I'm tenacious, I'm patient, I'll keep trying things, but then when something starts to really work well, I tend to uh, want to just go all in, like it's never going to, like it's going to end tomorrow, and try to get as much out of it as I can as quickly as I can. And so I certainly experienced that in the poker days. We started with, I was doing all kinds of things before that, selling on eBay, and I had some other side businesses and stuff I was doing. And then this thing took off, and then after a year or two, we started buying other businesses in the same space, and kind of trying to be like an aggregator and doing a bunch of other things. And it's hard. It's hard to do things with the same focus. I did the same thing in other affiliate spaces, and then I saw the same thing happen in e-commerce. And finally, I think I just have realized after reading the book, The One Thing, and Essentialism, but probably more importantly, experiencing the effects of trying to do too much, and what that does, and being around other people who have remained focused on one thing, and the success that they've had. I think I finally just learned my lesson. I'm a slow learner. It took me it took me a long time, um, and it's interesting because now that I am just focusing on one e-commerce business, it's a relatively small business compared to some of the other stuff we've done. It'll do mid seven figures this year. It has 20 SKUs. I'm still overwhelmed just working on the one thing, right? I mean, there's still just so much to do every day. It's kind of crazy that we were able to run five of these things simultaneously, some of which, uh, were hundreds of SKUs and on multi-channel and all these different things. And so I don't know. I mean, it's just I think everyone gets there in their own way. I do know some people who have been incredibly successful running an aggregator or multiple brands at once, and good for them. I'm just not good at it. I've just really realized that every time you add one more thing, you're just splitting your focus in some way, whether it's 50-50 or 60-40 or 95-5 or whatever. In some way you're spending more time on one thing and less time on the other instead of being laser focused. And so I've tried to, at least for the last few months, operate under that umbrella.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, the book One Thing, it looks very thin, but it teaches us a
Yeah.
lot of lessons, right? So,
Yeah, it's on the bookshelf back there. What that way?
yeah,
Somewhere
I,
back
I
there
have
if
it
you're
here
looking at
as
this on
well.
camera. Nice.
So,
Yeah, no, it's a good book. I mean, it could be one chapter, right? Like it tells you everything you need to know. It rambles on a little bit, but again, the premise is that if you're focused on one thing, you'll do better at that one thing. Even if you had 10 things to pick from and you pick the worst of those 10 things, if you focused on that, you'd still be better off than trying to do all 10 of them and having that bucket of the best thing in your or that one thing in your bucket. um, I think maybe a great example of this is water, right? Like water, you pour it out of a milk jug, and it just makes you wet. It's no big deal, but you put it through a pinhole with a lot of pressure, it'll like cut your arm off or cut through diamonds or whatever it is. And so, focusing on something, it's probably the best analogy. And uh, I've definitely, again, I'm seeing things, I'm looking at things that I just hadn't looked at for literally for years, for a half a decade, because we just never had time to spend time on those things. You brush that aside. I'll work on it later, and now I'm already starting to work on some of those things. So it has made a big difference.
yeah, I mean, I 100% agree on you on this because, when I started as an Amazon seller myself. Then I started my YouTube channel, and that got some traction, and we started our coaching business as well on the side of that. And then the agency. Okay. So all things were piling up, and I quickly realized that, okay, this is not going to happen like this way. And I instead thought that, okay, let's go deep in something rather than spreading wide. And I think that is
Yep.
what it is, right? I mean, speed is one thing that you need to learn fast, and another thing is don't distract in other things or only keep in one thing, and that is what the book also tells. So, Mike, I had one question. Okay, the same question I asked in the summit itself. How many brands so far have you sold?
Just in e-commerce,
Yeah.
we've sold. Let me have to think about it for a second. I have. It's been six.
Wow.
Yeah, six in e-commerce.
That's good. That's good. I think, and what's interesting is we are talking about these aggregators, right? And when you talk about this, obviously we are hearing this news about aggregators, some big aggregators going bankrupt and filing for bankruptcy. Obviously, when you talk about that, what do you suggest to new sellers? Can they even think of, or can they even train their psychology on preparing or starting a brand to sell? I mean, they can build that mindset, or they can start with, okay, I'll start a brand, let's see where it goes, or let's start a brand, and this is how the plan of execution is going to be to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like when it's your very first business, this stuff is tough because you don't necessarily know all the things that you're going to eventually need to know to have a successful exit. But certainly, when I start anything, I'm 19 years into this. Like I said, I'm immediately beginning with the end in mind. So I'm setting up the business from day one with the intention of selling it, and so that means creating its own LLC and bank account and credit card statements and financials and having all that. taken care of from day one. And so I'm not trying to go back and scramble and re-separate this thing out. I'm trying to keep each business separate from each other, completely delineated. So like when I do go to sell, there's no argument over sharing resources, etc. I'm very organized from day one. So all my invoices and other documentations always going into a Google Drive. I'm basically preparing for due diligence from day one. So like the day that I have to go through due diligence, I just share a folder and I'm already prepared. And so, I think that that's, probably the most important thing. But, if you're just getting started, the tendency is to, I'll just run this out of my personal checking account for a little while or my personal credit card. I'm just trying this out. Can I make any money online?
Mhm.
I get that, but I would, highly recommend spending the extra couple $100, separating things from day one. It'll make it easier to do your taxes and your accounting and everything. I assume it's similar around the world as it is in the United States, where you would want that to be separate. And then for us, we get tax deductions and other things by having it separate and being able to document those business expenses. So there's a double benefit to that. But for me, that's the most important. I think just from talking to brokers and other people in the industry because of running ecom crew and going to conferences and being friends with brokers, you hear all these different stories out there. And surprisingly, from talking to these people, most people just aren't even remotely prepared to sell, even if they've been in business for multiple years and they're going to sell because they're not organized in a way to go through a due diligence process. So that process becomes miserable at best, and worst case, the deal just blows up because they're not able to perform when it comes to doing that. So it's something that I recommend trying to take care of as early in the process as possible.
Got it, definitely. So all those brands that you have sold, all this were sold to aggregators or private buyers? How is it structured?
Yeah, it's been a combination of everything above. I can care less who I sell something to, right? Some
Who?
people are
Yeah.
are worried about like who it is or how they're going to carry on with the brand. Now, look, if I'm given an opportunity to actually make a decision of someone buys your brand and destroys it and it goes to zero, or someone takes your brand and carries on the torch and makes $100 million with it, I'd rather it be the $100 million success story. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, someone's writing you a check, it's no longer yours. And what happens after that is completely meaningless. I mean, uh, and I do think about the things I've sold from time to time, and I'll go back and look at them. And again, both things have happened. Like when we sold Treadmill, the guy, uh, I think he was a very wealthy individual, and he bought it for his kids to have a business. They were like in their late teens. Uh, not surprising. Like they probably didn't have really any interest in it, and it just kind of squandered and eventually went to zero. And I think that he just sold the domain name to a competitor because they just wanted treadmill.com. And so I don't know. That makes me kind of sad, right? I put a lot of effort, sweat, and tears into this thing, and to see it just go completely away is a pretty crappy feeling versus Color It, which was a coloring book company that we started from scratch
Yeah.
and sold in 2019, and they've gone on to do very well and produce like another 50 titles after we've sold it and really expand the business. That makes me much happier. But at the end of the day, I have no financial outcome one way or the other, and I'm pretty good at being able to compartmentalize things, and I've moved on, and it really doesn't make a difference what happens from there.
Definitely. I think things are changing now as well because now what we are seeing is a lot of aggregators are moving out of the game, right? So for now, obviously,
Yeah.
if sellers are building their brands, they have to also look at that thing as well. So, Mike, let's move on and change the topics a little bit because we all know you have exited a lot of brands and people want to know and get more knowledge from your experience because you were still running one brand and sales are there, right? Sales are just in the corner and we need to get some strategies from you. So when you talk about sales, right? Obviously, we know now TikTok ads, Google ads, all these things are really piling up with Amazon, and we're seeing that Amazon is also rewarding us for external traffic or external signals that we are bringing into Amazon. So when you talk about this traffic signals, different type of traffic signals, because you have tried all of them, I guess. What do you think have given you the best results based on your experience and your brands?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of success with SEO, and I think that you tend to gravitate towards the things that you know,
Hmm.
and I started doing SEO in 2003, late 2003, early 2004. So like I said, it's basically been 20 years since I started optimizing something for Google. So almost actually 20 years to the day since I kind of launched my first website and started doing that. And so again, the tendency for me is to keep going back to that well. I'm very comfortable with it.
Mhm.
I feel like uh, it's the tried and true thing that's worked for multiple decades of putting out good content, getting people to visit your site, and uh, I guess kind of get quasi free traffic. It isn't really free because you're
Yeah.
spending money on the infrastructure and the content to get it up there. But once you're ranking, it feels effortless, right? And so the big business that we just sold in June of this year,
Mhm.
we actually owned it for 3 years. And the day that we bought it, the very first initiative that I did was let's start working on SEO. I feel like this particular brand, this niche, is ripe for putting out content and getting people to our site that will then convert into buyers. And it worked out really, really well. It took about 18 months to really start to see that lift. But once we did, we were able to grow our business significantly. And certainly that helped us get a higher multiple, and grow the business enough to make it a really good deal for us. It was a great transaction. And so, for me, that's been really the thing that I've gone back to. But the other thing I always caution people on, I don't think that there is any one single blueprint for every single thing out there, right?
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly niche specific. And so for that niche, we were like in this home hardware business, and there was just hundreds of different types of same but different type of hardware, and being able to write about that and instruct people on how to pick the right thing and how to install it, etc. There just wasn't a lot of content out there already, and the competition was very low. And so I felt like we could move the needle relatively quickly. We've had success with a coloring book company doing SEO, but we also had a stuffed animal brand. I would never even attempt SEO in that niche because how are you going to even approach that, especially in an ultra competitive niche? And so, the same thing would be said for TikTok ads, or
Mhm.
working with influencers, or having an affiliate program, or any of the other ways you can get external traffic. Not every uh, avenue works for every single business. And so, a really good example of this is Ice Wraps, which is the brand that I have right now, hot and cold therapy products. This is not a TikTok brand. This is not a Instagram brand. This is an SEO brand. But like, really, what it comes down to is this is not the type of product that someone sees on a social media feed and is thinks in the back of their mind, "Oh my god, I have to have this." Like, that's a component that is necessary to drive sales in a social world. And so someone putting an ice pack in the freezer and it getting cold is not going to like light their fire and get them to go, "Oh my god, I have to have this," versus a coloring book did do that. Like, you could really show off the book and the designs and the artwork that we had, and the creativity that people had with all that. And we were able to convert people, just like that by running those types of ads. And so I would caution you to make sure that you have the right product that's going to resonate. And you should be able to to probably you know, think about it for just a second. Would you buy this off of social media? If the answer is no,
Mhm.
then probably don't run ads. If you think the answer is yes, then go ahead and run ads. And usually it's either a zero or a one. It's very binary. There's very few things that kind of fit in the middle that kind of do okay. It either does very well or don't even bother at all.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is just about testing, and it's different for every niche, as you have said. So when you
Hmm.
talk about e-commerce sales, right? So when you started this brand with SEO, obviously SEO takes time. So when you started, how much percentage of sales were coming from, uh, like apart from Amazon? How was the distribution about?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey because when I first got started with e-commerce, I was 0% Amazon.
Mhm.
It was all SEO or Google AdWords driven traffic. And so, but that was in 2013. So that's been 10 years. And so Amazon wasn't anywhere near what it is today back then. And then when I got into Amazon in 2015, that seemed just so easy because there was almost no competition and ads were 10 cents a click. And so there's definitely been a revolution. Right now we're like 90% Amazon, 10% off Amazon. just because of the nature of the type of business that we have right this second. It's not where I really want to be. It's the one brand that I have left, and that's where we're at. The brand that we just sold, I had got in it from 100% Amazon up to 24% Shopify, while still growing our Amazon. So we were, if you kind of think about the numbers there, I mean, like, it
Hmm.
wasn't because our Amazon sales were suffering. I mean, our Amazon sales were still going up, and we created this whole new niche uh, for our business almost entirely based off the back of SEO. Again, I mean, it takes time. You have to have the skill set to do it. It has to be the proper niche. There's a lot of things where SEO just isn't a viable strategy, but it was for that business, and we definitely ran with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think with Amazon itself as well, it is constantly changing, right? Same as other media buying platforms, everything is changing, especially since what we are seeing is Amazon's the kind of ad spend that sellers are doing in Amazon is also rising, and it is comparatively
Yeah.
similar to Google ads or YouTube ads, or higher maybe. And what we are also seeing is A9 algorithm. It is constantly changing thing, right? It changes every day, and now and then it is going to bring on new updates. And what we are also seeing is Amazon is now focusing a lot into geo ranking. And what we have observed is your CPC or average CPC can also be very low if your product is near to the customer, and your ads, then your ads will be most relevant to that customer, and that brings your average CPC to a lot down. And obviously that is going to help you if your product is near to the customer, because you can't directly control which warehouse you are going to send your products. But when you talk to sales, because when you talk about sales, which is just in front of in front of us, how would you structure your e-commerce marketing? Let's talk about Google ads or SEO that will combine with your Amazon's sponsored products or sponsored brands. Do you specifically set any strategy that, okay, we are going to allocate this much amount of budget towards Amazon, and since the sale is there and the traffic is going to be up for everywhere, right? Not only Amazon, but this is going to also up for Google ads, everything. So how to structure and allocate your budget based on the sales season specifically?
Yeah, I mean, my feeling on ad spend is the budget's unlimited. I always look at it from that perspective, because if there's ever a situation in life where I give someone $1 and they give me back
Hmm.
five, I don't want to have a budget for that. I want to find as many dollars I can turn into five as possible. And so that's the whole objective with ads, right? I mean, we our objective is to run at a minimum break even, but really profitable ads. And so if I have an ad that is operating profitably, then my budget's unlimited. And cash flow in this world is relatively quick. I mean, you spend the money on the ads, you're going to have the sale relatively quickly. The money will be in your bank relatively quickly. So you're not floating huge amounts of money, maybe like in traditional media buying back in the 80s, where you're spending 100K on a newspaper ad and waiting for the revenue to come in. And so again, when I'm looking at stats, if I'm at a 3x ROAS or higher, I know I'm breaking even or making money, and I set my budget to be as high as I can possibly get it. And this goes whether it's on Amazon or on Google or any of these other platforms. Um, Now, I do prioritize external traffic a little bit more, so I'll be willing to run those ads closer to a break even or even at a slight loss, because I have believed for a long time that Amazon uh, is prioritizing this external traffic as a ranking signal. Now it's pretty much a foregone conclusion, but this is something that I kind of anticipated earlier. I think when you look at Google, which again, doing SEO for a long time,
Hmm.
uh, they look at ways like to stop you from gaming the system, right? It's how can we do SEO in a way? How can we have the best result rank on Google without people doing black hat stuff, where the black hat stuff is less meaningful? And so for Amazon, that really comes down to, well, if we're getting a bunch of traffic from an outside source and it's converting, that's probably real, right? If you think about if this product is showing up on dozens of other websites or other content creators, and they're driving traffic to it, it's probably the new relevant thing. And how do you black hat that? Like, it's pretty tough. I mean, it can be done, but it's pretty difficult to have like that organic, natural looking footprint. I mean, there's things you can do, that clearly are black hat, and I think that big data can sniff this out really quickly. But from an organic footprint, I think that it's difficult to game. And so if I can run ads for instant ice packs or something on
Mhm.
Google and have that traffic go from Google over to Amazon and convert, I'm going to prioritize that and and be willing to spend a little bit more money on it because I think that I'm feeding Amazon data of, hey, like people are looking elsewhere for this product. They come here, they buy it. That's a signal that I certainly want to be feeding. I want to be feeding Amazon, and so we continue to do that. We've been doing this really since 2016. Uh, uh, Late 2016, we started doing focusing quite a bit on external traffic. We were very early to the table on this, and we had products that worked well with this, that worked well with SEO, that worked well with Google AdWords, that worked well with influencers because it was the nature of that beast of that product. And so again, not every product works well with every one of these models, but certainly with that brand, it was working phenomenally well.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go a little bit deep into this topic, right? Because you have shared a lot of valuable points on sending traffic towards a listing. So, when you talk about sending traffic, Google Ads, let's talk about Google Ads. Do you directly send to your product URL or PDP or store page or any other way that you prefer sending the traffic?
Yeah, we're sending it directly to our product page. So we're running like for individual search terms. The search term lines up specifically with
Mhm.
a product, and we drive them right there.
Got it, definitely. Okay. So when you do a product launch, obviously when it talks about a niche product, we are you launching to a already made a list of customers that you already have, or you just create the list from scratch? And if you create a list from scratch, how do you structure it? What is the strategy of creating the list?
Yeah, I mean, again, this has been different for different brands that we've run, but certainly the most success that we've ever
Mhm.
had has been having a big email list, right? And it's I think a super important component of running a successful e-commerce business. Um, for the coloring book business, what we did was we ran Facebook ads, uh, telling people that we would give them free coloring pages. That we just had to get their email address, right? And then what we would do is drip those coloring pages out. We would give them like 20 coloring pages, and we would drip that out over the course of a couple of months. We had this extensive, like 100 email long onboarding flow, where we would send you a picture, and then we would or this free drawing, and then we would send some stuff about how people in the community have been coloring this and some tips and tricks for that drawing, and maybe something about the book that it came from, and then we would send them another free drawing, and it was like this cycle of like kind of going through that, and then in between we maybe would offer them a coupon or a sale very
Mhm.
sporadically through that chain. And so, my feeling is that if you have someone on your email list, you want to communicate with them very frequently, and you want to communicate with them in a way that you're giving them value, right? Almost everyone in your, that you sign up for their email, all it is like Black Friday sale, and here's our new product, and here's a coupon. It's Mother's. It's always like sale, 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 new product, new product, new product, and almost zero value of any kind, right? It's just they're just sell, sell, sell. And my feeling is, sell by accident. Give them value, develop a relationship with them, keep your brand top of mind with them, and eventually, when they're looking or you do have a sale, they're much more likely to open up your email and engage with it. And that worked incredibly well, including launching a new product. So whenever we launch something new, we would send out to our email list, make it sound very
Mhm.
exclusive or whatever. And so when we launched our gel pens, for instance, we became the number one best-selling gel pens on Amazon, just a couple of days, which is a very competitive category. We're talking about selling multiple containers of these things a month, if you kind of think of the scale of it. And
Okay.
so to be able to penetrate that niche, very, very difficult to do kind of in the traditional way. But when you have 100,000 people on your email list, and again, we didn't offer discounts or coupons. We just developed a relationship with people and convinced them that they should go buy these gel pens, and they did, and it was a huge profit center for us.
Yeah, definitely. And also, since you have a good experience with exiting a lot of brands, do you think having a good email list also increases the value of your brand during exit?
100%. Yeah, I mean, multiple ranges are pretty
Hmm.
pretty crazy. It's anywhere from 2x all the way up to even 10x.
Wow.
I actually have a friend that sold for 14x. That was to private equity in a very special circumstance. You got very lucky. Timing was great, but um, we just sold a business for, on the higher end of what multiples are these days. And color it's sold for on the higher end as well. And so when you have a business that doesn't have a lot of history, multiples are going to go lower. When you have a business that has low margin, multiples are going to go lower. When you're 100% Amazon and a single SKU, multiples are going to go lower. But if you're diversified and you have a bunch of recurring SEO traffic that's been going on for years and it's on a upward trajectory, that's going to increase your multiple. If you have 100,000 people on your email list and your open rate's like 40% and you're driving 20% of your overall revenue from email, revenue is going to go up. When you have, or multiples are going to go up, I apologize. When you have a brand that has a very high repeat business from your customers, it isn't just they're just not buying something once; they're buying over and over again. And you have a long lifetime value of a customer, long trajectory, high average order value, et cetera. Multiples are going to go up, and so we've been lucky to design businesses around this. It wasn't really by accident because this is something you learn over the years. And so, yeah, that was all purposeful as we were building out the brand. The business we just sold on the higher end of the multiple range, a lot of the value that we unlocked was just getting a bigger multiple from what we bought it for to
Mhm.
what we sold it for. When we bought the business, it was a great business. The operator was amazing, but it was all single channel, kind of laser focused. And what we did was really again focus on building out that Shopify channel, building out SEO, building out more B2B type orders over there, and it allowed us to fetch a higher multiple because now it was a more diversified, more stable business. We survived COVID. We kind of proved that it was recession proof as well. And so again, we were able to go to market and just and fetch that higher multiple, even though, like, I mean, obviously other things are important. Our profit was up, our revenue was up, et cetera. But we also got you know a much higher multiple than, so the multiple arbitrage almost, by making a stronger business.
Yeah, and you talked about B2B customers, and I think Amazon have their own program where they cater towards business customers, right? And a lot of
Hmm.
sellers don't talk about this business B2B kind of market that we also have. So, how was this the sales that generated through business customers? Is it very high, or what is the percentage would be?
Yeah, I mean, just again, probably product and niche specific.
Hmm.
We've had a couple brands that do very well with the B2B stuff. I think that everybody, no matter what you're selling, should have be focusing on business buyers. Like, you'd be surprised at what people will buy. But even if people, like for myself, as a for instance, I have a business account. I have an
Yeah.
Amazon business account as a shopper, uh, and so there's a lot of people that are just like me, that I'm doing my personal shopping on Amazon with my Amazon business account. That's really the only way that I can do it. And so I'm seeing business pricing and getting prioritized results for business listings. And so I really recommend people, even if it's just a penny less for a business customer, be catering to business. It doesn't cost you anything extra. And you should be setting business pricing and volume discounts. And you'd be surprised. I mean, we had a stuffed animal business that we sold this year.
Mhm.
um, I would never imagine in a million years that a business would buy these things. It's like a one-time purchase for your grandchild kind of thing. But every now and then, we'd have someone buy 50 of the same animal, and clearly that's some type of business transaction. And it was happening more and more frequently over time. And so I think, the moral of the story is spend the time to go turn on business, selling ability in your account, and then set a business price and set volume discounts for those businesses. You'll be surprised at how good that can work for you.
Great. I think that is great. So, Mike, I think we are already close to 35 minutes, and you have already shared a lot of valuable points that sellers are, I'm sure, taking notes of. So, before we end the podcast, Mike, where can people follow you?
Yeah, I mean, it's Ecom Crew everywhere. So ECOMCREW, all one word. So it's ecomcrew.com, Ecom Crew, where you get your podcast, Ecom Crew on YouTube, on all the socials. You can email at support at ecomcrew.com. Uh, and really just anywhere you type in Ecom Crew, you should find us. And yeah, man, thanks for having me on today. It's been fun seeing you again.
Yeah,
We have it on
definitely.
video, and and chatting with you.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming. And I hope your next flight goes smooth.
The only thing past what I experienced
Yeah.
yesterday would be a crash, and so the chances are it will be smoother, hopefully.
Let's hope for the best. Thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure having you today.
Thanks, Sammy.